In healthy friendships, there are basic relationship rules that everybody's got to live by. A man isn't exempt because he becomes a husband. He's got to live by all the same relationship rules and truths that you do. But if you examine all the biblical teaching on marriage, that's exactly what happens. The man becomes exempt because after marriage, the friendship part is exchanged with words like marriage, spouse, and one flesh relationship. It's an oxymoron because there can't be a one flesh relationship if there's no more friendship. For all intents and purposes, after we get married, a woman is conditioned to live out of a new functional role, and that friendship, which was supposed to be the beginning of the one flesh relationship, that transition never actually happens. The friendship has been replaced with a title and a position that sits within a hierarchical structure that marriage lives in. The form and functionality for the role of a wife begins consuming that original friendship, making it impossible for the femininity of a woman to continue in a relationship with masculinity. There's no relationship growing strong and blooming, continuing from those original roots of that friendship. We just talk like there is. We just imagine it's real. But in practical terms, the walk of the relationship doesn't match the talk of the marriage. It's this oxymoron that gives the wolf his exemption. If you're married to a wolf in sheep's clothing, that will be an indicator right there. There's a heavy power imbalance because the covert narcissist subversively forces the marriage into the hierarchical structure, which places the role of the husband above the role of the wife. He's superior in the marriage roles, so obviously he's exempt from all the regular codes and truths and rules of friendship that every other relationship experiences. The imbalance you experience is that you must own all your own errors, sins, and misdemeanors, all those faux pas that normal humans experience in relationship, as well as all of his. Every time the solution to any relationship, problem, or conflict in marriage is sourced back to the hierarchical structure of marriage, that teaching on marriage is what beguiles the femininity of a woman. 2 Timothy 3:6. Now, if you're married to a healthy man, he's healthy but unself-aware, and that makes him dysfunctional and difficult because of lacking in knowledge and skills about the feminine creature. That kind of flaccid teaching that focuses just on the role of a woman is what maintains the status quo in a difficult marriage. And a lot of times, what you feel is the death, the slow death of the marriage. But if you're married to a wolf, it's dangerous teaching, and what you're feeling is not the death to the marriage, but death to the feminine self, you. It's death to you. That catch-all instruction that tells a wife that every conflict can be solved with simply more submission and more respectful behavior, trying to be that excellent wife that you find in Proverbs 31, that advice almost killed me. I didn't understand the polarity dynamics of real relationship between femininity and masculinity, but just works and function that you do as the role of a wife. A beautiful feminine creature full of complex emotions and feelings is systematically shut down as she's turned into a linear, thinking, functional creature. Any marriage teaching that forces a wife to sacrifice all her femininity into living her life through the role called wife, while simultaneously solidifying a man's position through that hierarchical structure, that's what gives the man's masculinity sexual primacy. It's the opposite way God created his daughters to be in relationship with his sons. Ephesians 5:25. That's why almost all Christian marriage teaching is mostly impotent when it comes to difficult or dysfunctional marriages. But that same teaching is deadly to his daughters if they're married to a wolf. Do you see how the wrong teaching about marriage from Christianity fits like a hand in glove for a wolf in sheep's clothing? It creates a lazy man through entitled masculinity. The Duluth Wheel of Power and Control calls this male privilege. When you entitle masculinity and at the same time cripple femininity, you've just created the perfect setting for intimate partner abuse. That's what wolves do to sheep, especially the broken-hearted lambs. The first thing a wolf does is to establish that because you're female, it's you who's responsible for the temperature of the relationship. It's easy to do because Satan has twisted the understanding to be that because a woman has all the estrogen, she should be the head in the relationship. He doesn't operate overtly like that, though. In the beginning, you feel empowered, like you're the one in control, and that's intentional. Then he started to covertly, subtly shifting the responsibility over a period of time. Who does all the relationship research in your marriage? Who finds and buys all the books? Who tries to solve all the problems? Who's always trying to make the marriage better? You, the woman. So over that period of time, what happens is that all the feelings that link power with responsibility have gone because you were never really in a position of power. You just thought that you were. What you're left with is 100% of the responsibility and no power. Because remember, there really is no relationship, just the structure of roles that has placed the husband at the top. A woman's power is in her feminine embodiment, but that's been replaced, right, with the role called wife, and the position of her role sits underneath his. That has given the husband all the power and you all the responsibility. How long did it take your husband to groom you into believing that he's dysfunctional or difficult or clueless when it comes to relationship, and that it's you who's better suited to have all the power in the relationship? If you were intentionally groomed, here's what that pattern feels like. You find a new solution. It's a book or a course or an idea. And you're hopeful because it works for a while. And then it doesn't. Once you begin to accept and live in that idea that you just can't find the right solution because you keep looking, right? You keep bringing new suggestions about how to make your marriage better. Then the wolf knows you're ready for him to implement that final step. You're the problem, not him. He has effectively driven a wedge between responsibility and power, and he's used his position in the hierarchical structure to do it. In that period of time that you're being conditioned, you slowly have accepted all the faults as your responsibility. And you begin to accept that it's you that's always the problem. All those solutions that you look for and find, the ones that work for only a brief time, it's not the solutions that were wrong. And it's not him, remember, because he's got no responsibility. So that only leaves you. Now, you're perfectly positioned for him to abuse you in all those categories from the wheel of power and control. The hierarchical structure of the roles has split the connection of responsibility away from the position of power. And you've got no leg left to stand on because your feminine power has been circumvented through the role called wife. You know the pattern I'm talking about. It's marriage book after marriage book after marriage book, marriage conference after marriage conference, yet another idea to try and make your marriage better. And you hope maybe he's finally getting it. No, he's not. What he's doing is grooming you for heavier and deeper abuse. So I want to ask you, were you groomed? But before I ask it, I want you to not think about the answer or analyze your answer in any way. And don't judge yourself for how you feel. Just feel it. And this is how I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and take in a breath for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 4. Hear the question and feel. It will be the first twinge in your belly region. Ready? Close your eyes and take a breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. When your husband comes home from work, you're going to have a conversation about how he hurt your feelings. How do you feel? When you think about a confrontation, do you experience peaceful confidence that you're going to get closer because it will be resolved well? And, I'm not even talking about huge things, just even little offenses, regular things that everybody experiences as they're living in close quarters with another person. So, do you feel protected and able to be unfiltered about your emotional needs as a female? And is there a struggle feeling and sadness, maybe even a little apprehension? Or do you feel like you've got a big job ahead of you, more like pulling teeth to get your point across? Or do you feel pangs of dread, pangs of fear, or even terror? Maybe your experience was like mine. I experienced all 3 of those conditions. In the very beginning of the relationship was peaceful confidence. Then, about 3 years in, it turned into the struggle of feeling like it was pulling teeth to try and get him to understand. That lasted about 15 years as it slowly turned into dread, then fear. It was the final 15 years that it turned from fear to terror. Don't let psychology tell you that it's fear from the conflict avoidant or avoidant attachment or anything else that focuses on him. This is about you. God designed your feminine body to know when she's in danger. It's not an analyzed focus to understand. It's a feeling you experience. What did you feel? Were you groomed? Men who are difficult and dysfunctional, even a bit clueless, they're unself-aware. These are the wounded guys. A wolf is not wounded. He's intentionally choosing the power of masculinity to crush the weaker vessel. Your femininity. A wolf isn't clueless. He's very self-aware. He's dangerous, not to the marriage like a dysfunctional guy. He's dangerous to you personally.